course, superheroes. But there's one dedicated entirely to nonfiction TV and documentary films, and that's Curiosity Stream. History, science, nature, we've got it. Space, dinosaurs, big cats, we've got that too. And pretty much anything else you want to explore. Go ahead, add some smart TV to your smart TV with Curiosity Stream. Go to curiositystream.com to sign up and start streaming today.
Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. We love you in Canada and Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful May the 7th, 2021. Rondo Deportes, bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, it's been wonderful. You know, it's nice to have a new Justice Department in Washington, D.C., Charlton, because a federal grand jury today handed down an indictment on Derek Chauvin and the 3 other police officers that murdered George Floyd in Minneapolis, Charlton. So their problems have not even come close to ending, just beginning. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses and doctors and first responders, Charlton. They treat everybody fairly.
They treat everybody fair, and that's the way it should be. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars never stop arriving. Also, all around the world, say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really do appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Man, I love pausing, Big C. A lot of people pausing on this beautiful day called Friday, May the 7th. I know a lot of people are happy because I think there's some things called football about to get underway as far as camp goes, but I'll never pause on our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, why should everybody care?
Well, Charlton, it's very important. I want to wish happy birthday to my brother who is a veteran who served in the Army, as many other military veterans, Charlton. But unfortunately, a lot of our veterans have turned to suicide in this country, over 24 a day. They need somebody to talk to, Charlton, to show concern financially, emotionally, physically about them. And this is what America needs to pay attention to, the disability of many of our veterans, Charlton.
Yeah.
It may not show when you see veterans with amputees and things like that, but scars run much deeper than that, emotional scars, Charlton, that many of these veterans have had to deal with. And unfortunately, they've turned to suicide because those are unrecognizable traits. We give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, and more Americans need to do that and be concerned about our veterans. Beyond just saying thank you for your services, have a conversation with a veteran. Sometimes they'll let you know what's troubling them at that point. And once again, happy birthday to my brother and all you veterans out there. We hope all the best for you.
Hoping all the best for you as well. I want to say you can just pick up the phone and call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And you can definitely get some help for our veterans. Also, Big C, the NFL Hall of Fame, they're launching the same initiative to get former players some help. So I tell you, what you've been doing has been growing like a good forest fire, if that makes sense to you. Also want to say very happy to be affiliated with Valley, Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants, and the Say Hey Kid, as well as our home run king, Barry Bonds. When you reach out to him, just tell him Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country to help put people back to work, just like McDonald's does it, car leadership do it, sports teams are doing it. Watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. Most of our loans are underwritten by Rocket Mortgage, the #1 lender in the country on the wholesale side. I also want to say thank you to Xfinity, Comcast TV, and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up from all over the world, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. All you got to do is rise and shine. You got to rise and shine, Big C. Now, I told you I found this nest in the backyard up on a tree over a hammock that I lay down in, and there's a bluebird nest, Big C. And so I was outside, and I was feeding some cheese puffs to the bluebirds. I hope they're not cholesterol conscious, Big C, but I was trying to feed them. I don't want to feed them live worms. But I looked up in the sky, and I saw about 100 airplanes. They looked like airplanes. They were flying in a straight line several miles high. There must have been about 100 of them, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, it's open air space. Who knows what was going on? Maybe the Russians were invading California.
They're not trying to get our wine, Big C. I think I bought all the barrels up. They're not getting wine for this. It's all fair level war. But it was, I won't say alarming, but it was a sight to see. It's kind of like you see things in Star Trek or Star Wars. And I know I saw them because I was trying to count them, even went inside and had my kids come out. It's all fair level war. Big C, so much happening in the NBA sports universe. A lot of good things happening. With the schedule tonight, Big C, on a Friday night, Big C scheduled for May 7th. I know a lot of people are getting ready to see if they can kind of position for themselves to have a chance to play in the playoff game. But the great Zion Williamson, I guess he got his finger a little bit injured, and he's maybe out indefinitely, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's only 2 weeks left in the NBA season, Charlton, so a lot of players with injuries right now. And, you know, if you're not in the playoff hunt, they're just going to rest you the rest of the year.
Yeah, they're trying to rest a lot of people, Big C. It's all fair and level war. New Orleans, they're at Philadelphia. What a time to not be able to go up against the great Joel Embiid, Big C. Boston's at Chicago. Orlando is at Charlotte. In Minnesota, they're at Miami, Big C. It's going to be kind of hot down in Miami. Houston's at Milwaukee. And them Bucks are doing very well, Big C. Cleveland is at Dallas. Dallas got over, as you said they would last night, on the Brooklyn Nets, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the Nets are struggling, Charlton. They've lost 4 consecutive games, and they're not the same team without James Harden. I mean, regardless of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant scoring a lot of points, there's no cohesiveness with just the two of them on the court.
Yeah, it's hard to get out there and find chemistry when you never really had it. It's all fair and level war, Big C. Also, Cleveland at Dallas, as I mentioned. Denver is at Utah. And what many people feel will be at least one of these teams will get knocked out before the Western Conference Finals, Big C. I don't know who it's going to be, but it's a good matchup for the Western Conference, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, how would you feel if both of those teams are in the Western Conference Finals, Charlton? Because they're two of the top contenders.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel all that bad, but I wouldn't feel all that good. It's all fair and level war, Big C. You know, when you talk about those teams, those two teams, you get a chance to see the guy that you like as one of the front runners for Chicken Nuggets, Big C, over in Denver, if he can go up the Joker, if he can get the best of the Utah Jazz and have a balanced team under the great Quentin Snyder, Big C. They've been so good lately, just knocking on the door. And Denver's always, I mean, since Carmelo Anthony left, you can't really look forward to Denver being in the Western Conference Finals. It just doesn't seem to happen for them. But this team in Utah, they got to defend home court tonight, and they have a big chance to great Rudy Gobert, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Carmelo Anthony never took the Nuggets to the Western Conference Finals, Charlton. He always struggled being out in the first or second round throughout his career out there, Charlton. But this is an excellent challenge for the Joker tonight, Charlton, going against the best defensive center in the NBA. And if he can have his way against Rudy Gobert, I think it would solidify him being the league's MVP.
Yeah, and I meant when I think about Carmelo Anthony, that's when you anticipated Denver maybe getting to the Western Conference Finals. Never happened, Big C. New York is at Phoenix. Them good old boys from New York, they have the audacity to go down into the heart of the sun and take on Chris Paul and them good old boys, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Chris Paul is right there in the running for the MVP right behind Joker. I think those two players will finish 1-2, and if they can handle business against the New York Knicks, who are going to be in the playoffs for the first time in a decade, led by Julius Randle and R.J. Barrett, Charlton, this team has really risen to the cause this year, and I think they may thump the Nets out of the playoffs.
We will find out, Big C. That would be really big news. That would get the great Patrick Ewing upset for real. Not a stunt, Big C. The L.A. Lakers at the Portland Trail Blazers, and everybody seems to be counting the Lakers out, but as they always say, not so fast, my friends. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you got Anthony Davis falling down again last night, Charlton. I mean, if you're one of the top 5 players in the NBA, allegedly, then you got to be able to finish games as well as the season, Charlton. Anthony Davis has never been able to accomplish that throughout his career, so I don't know how people want to label him as one of the top 5 players in the NBA when he can't play 5 straight games.
Yeah, and I mean, not to knock anybody, when players get injured, everyone was telling Kevin Durant he should have come back to, don't take so much time off Kevin Durant, and then they rushed him back, or he allowed them to rush him back. He rushed himself back. He's a grown man, and then popped his Achilles in the NBA Finals against Toronto. But everybody says you got to muscle up. I've never seen a guy twist his ankle and then get back spasms, but maybe he has some lingering thing, but he's never gone through the season unblemished, Big C. That's just seems to be the way that he plays. It's all fair and love and war, but I wish him nothing but the best. And then you have the Sacramento Kings and also the Dallas Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Luka Doncic doesn't do that, Charlton. He doesn't take the days off because somebody looks at him sideways, as Anthony Davis does, and he'll fire it up on anybody.
Yeah.
So the Sacramento Kings better, say their prayers before the game tonight, Charlton, because they're going to need them once it's over as they try to figure out how much they lost by.
Yeah, they're great. I meant to say San Antonio is all fair level war. They're still in Texas. It's still a close place. Big C, I'm telling you, there's something about college sports that everybody, we're so fortunate to live in the world of sports, Big C. Not that we take our eyes off of what's going on in mainstream society, Big C. I think it's a magnifying glass to how things can be. And sometimes it takes people a little bit longer to catch up to reality or the way things should be, Big C. College sports, now the biggest brand, in some people's opinion, it's the biggest brand definitely over the last 10 years. In college football, just joined the fray, Big C. A lot of this was started by UCLA out in the Pac-10 at the time, now the Pac-12. But Alabama, they just announced on Tuesday that it's created a program called The Advantage, which will assist and educate the Crimson Tide student athletes with the tools necessary, Big C, to build and elevate their personal brands. We've been saying that for years, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think Alabama got a little sick and tired of you hollering about paper bags. And said, we'll just stack it on top of the table without it being a bag. Let everybody see, and we'll show the players how they can go out there and increase their net worth.
Yeah. That's funny. They do have paper bags that they're going to be wrapping some of these gifts in. It's called a bonus. But the program, I'm really proud of what they're doing. The program, which is combined on-campus resources, Big C, with external organizations, a lot of fraternities and sororities. They've always tried to help people anyway, but it was under the table. Now it's on top of the table. It will focus on the management. Each individual brand maximizing personal social media platforms and education, as well as financial literacy. They've already been doing that, but everyone got the money except for the student athletes. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this goes to show not only can you win national championships, Charlton, on the field, but you can win them off the field, Charlton, with the student athletes.
Yeah.
Is that you will be able to attract even more great athletes. I mean, you get the cream of the crop as it is, but now you can get everybody, Charlton, and your stronghold on college football will become even tighter.
Well, only if they keep playing SEC. They said the same thing about Alabama basketball, but I think UCLA sent them home packing with all those paper bags they brought to the tournament. But it's all fair level war. And the great Ramogi Huma out of UCLA and the Bannon brothers, they're the first one who started this talk about a decade ago. It's nice to see it getting traction, Big C. The program, which will combine on-campus and external resources, as well as management, all the financial literacy, that's great. But even more great, Big C, and even surprising, in my opinion, being a guy from the West Coast, Alabama Governor Kay Ivey, Big C, signed a bill last month that's going to allow college student athletes to receive compensation under the NCAA's new name, in image as well as likeness as a station. That law is expected to go into effect in July, and again, some players from UCLA have been pushing for that for the past decade. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, see, those players from UCLA had to go to court and sue the university, Charlton, and the university still refuses to pay student athletes or assist them in income outside their scholarship. But when you look at the southern part of the United States, they take that initiative to help their student athletes out, Charlton. The state of Florida, the state of Alabama, the state of Texas. Big Southern football, Charlton, said we don't mind sharing some of the wealth with the student athletes, Charlton, because they create so much for us. The Pac-12 says, hell no. You got to take us to court.
No, not necessarily. If you're talking about jobs for black men, they still have no black men that can even get an interview in the SEC.
We're talking about student athletes.
No, well, student athletes.
The Banion brothers had to sue UCLA. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. They took UCLA to court to win a lawsuit. UCLA still to this day has not opened up the doors for the current student athletes to say, we will help you out in name, likeness, and image. Whereas Southern universities, Charlton, they have made it a state law, Florida, Texas, and Alabama, saying we will do that for our student athletes.
And that's a good thing, but the SEC, it'd be nice if they would even interview a black man for a job, but they'll take all the black men's kids.
We're talking about student athletes and players right now. We'll get to the coaches at another time. That's another story for another day. We're talking about name, image, and likeness. Is that the SEC and Southern football has taken the bull by its horns, Charlton, and say we will help out the student athletes, where the Pac-12 says no. All you can do is take us to court.
No, and I think you got to pause on that, too, because they hoodwinking you, Big C. They let some of these players get paid, but a guy who looks like you won't even get an interview with the SEC because you're a black man. The Pac-12 has 4 African-American coaches. You can Google it. So whether it's a knock on the door, you can't get in, no matter how much you advocate for that conference. I still don't understand why you do, but it's all fair and level war. But Alabama, they did announce, that announcement comes less than a month after Florida State announced its program, Big C. So it's not just Alabama. Texas also announced its program, leveraged in August of 2020. Like other 2 programs, I think it's going to be heavily favored on financial literacy and also risk management, wealth management, and also tax strategies. You don't have to pay taxes when you're getting paid through paper bags, Big C. But I would love to see that conference that you're so proud of, when they see a man that looks like you, they don't just close the door and say, not so fast, my friend, Big C, your thoughts.
But what they're doing is giving these young athletes a kickstart in life. That is the reason why you send your children to college, to get ahead, to get a kickstart in life. And now that these athletic departments are going to go head and shoulders above the rest of the country, Charlton, in helping out the young student athletes, who knows where that will lead to in the next 10 years. We look at the last 10 years where Southern football has taken over the United States, Charlton. It has dominated it on every level. And now you're looking at they're taking the forefront as far as advancing the student athletes financially and culturally, Charlton, beyond what the West Coast is doing. You can have the coaches out there, but we don't see the coaches in the West Coast setting up these type of programs for their kids to advance themselves 10 years down the line if they're not playing in the NFL.
Well, they have been making an effort to do that, and they can do better. I agree with that. But if you can't, no matter what you say about their likeness, give those black men a chance to coach one of those programs that get $1 million as opposed to profiting under likeness. It's okay to open the whole floodgate.
So if that student athlete makes $1 million while he's there on campus, and he takes that and invests that, Charlton, if he doesn't make it to the NFL, and steamrolls that tenfold, Charlton, how well off will he be at that point? Now he's become a mentor for those other kids, Charlton, that's going to come along. This is what we're talking about. Life can't stop just at coaching.
Right.
You got to if you teach a man how to fish, he can feed himself forever. If you just give him a meal, yes, he'll be full that day. What they're doing is teaching these young men how to fish, how to build foundations, Charlton. That is the first and foremost thing that a student athlete should get in going to college. You're only going to have one head coach. You got 70 black players on the team. I would rather that those 70 black players have the potential of becoming millionaires versus one of them having the potential to become an head coach.
And I'm fine with all of it. I just wish that they were not so blatant in telling black men no. But it's all fair and level war. If you get the chance to be a student athlete and help them make some money, they're trying to give you some back. But if you're not an athlete, they're saying no. It's all fair and level war. No one can argue that it's a bad thing. It's a step in the right direction, and I want to see more of that happen all over the country. And speaking of that happening all over the country, Big C, when you think about the NFL Players Association, it calls the NFL memo after Ja'Wuan James' an injury a gutless scare tactic, and everybody has their own opinion when it comes to tactics, Big C. The NFL Players Association has fired back at the league, saying after the NFL issues a memo regarding the season-ending injury suffered by Denver Broncos offensive tackle Ja'Wuan James. In a memo, the league said that James, who reportedly tore his Achilles while working out away from the team facility, I think Anthony Davis, no, it was with the Splash Brothers. Thompson did the same thing with the Warriors, Big C. But this goes back to the NFL. They said it happened away from the team facility. So now they're trying to say that it's a tactic, Big C, a scare tactic, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, what they're trying to do, Charlton, is saying that his $20 million guaranteed contract becomes void because he was injured away from the team facility. And under COVID protocol, the league allowed players to work out away from the team facilities, Charlton, to not have social contact with each other. Unfortunately, James has tore his Achilles tendon, Charlton, and now the Denver Broncos are thinking about exercising their option of not paying him his $20 million for the season, Charlton. But how else are you supposed to get in shape to play other than sitting on the couch in the lazy boy?
Yeah, there's always a clause, and that clause is silly when they talk about he may forego his guaranteed salary because he was not working out with the team, when they're all told to just be safe, and sometimes you can't be in the facility with the team all the time, Big C. But the NFLPA sent an email Thursday. They called the response gutless, and I agree with the NFLPA, deeming it's a scare tactic to get you to come running back to those workouts. And a lot of guys, I mean, if you can't be safe during COVID when you listen to your doctor, when can you be safe? The NFLPA leadership, they emailed all players today, Big C, calling the NFL's memo to clubs regarding Ja'Wuan James, his recent injury, gutless, and a scare tactic to get you to come running back as the union continues to urge a boycott of the voluntary workouts at team facilities, Big C. Your thoughts?
And that may come about, Charlton. That's what's great about having a union, is that everybody's unified. And so if you get these veterans to say, hey, we're going to boycott and not come in, Charlton, and basically a preseason strike amongst the veterans, see who it hurts. It hurts the owners, Charlton, when it comes to losing millions of dollars in television revenue and not being able to broadcast preseason games.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody has their own way of looking at things. I think the league, as people are realizing, even with the CTE issue, Big C, the league has always cared about themselves. No matter what they say about players, whenever you have the chance to do the right thing, why is it that they publicize we're going to do everything to make the game safer? You can't go targeting anymore. You can't hit players helmet to helmet, Big C. You can't even hit a quarterback in the helmet. So they're saying we're really pro-player. But why is it when a player is trying to exercise being safe during COVID, they want to turn the table, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, the league has always been egregious about all their actions, Charlton. The league has never been about the players as much as they ever want to say that. It's just like when they set the new salary cap this year, Charlton, and reduced it 8% across the league with every team. 3 weeks after that, they signed a new television contract, Charlton, where the league's revenue increased 20%. So who were the league thinking about? The owners were thinking about themselves, not the players.
Yeah, it's like two contracts. So James opted out of the 2020 season due to the pandemic, which I think the league probably knows about COVID, Big C, since it affected a lot of their games, stands to lose up to $20 million. I hope that the attention will make the good old boys say, let's pay this man his money. The league's response drew the ire of players, including Kansas City Chiefs touchdown Mahomes quarterback Patrick Mahomes, Big C. But it has to draw the ire of the commissioner and even all of the owners. If they really care about their players, they can't tell you they're pro-safety. We just had the CTE issue. Now they're trying to take away your money by trying to be safer with COVID, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this will end up in arbitration nevertheless, because the owners are, we've had one owner saying this. We haven't had anybody else. This is basically John Elway sending down a memo about, this situation with James's injury.
Yeah.
So this is going to come down to arbitration with the Demarius Smith and the Players Association, challenging the league in arbitration and the Denver Broncos about recouping Mr. James' salary.
Yeah. I mean, it's always a fight. There's never anything, even a highway has to be paved to be smooth, because every now and then it gets potholes, Big C, and they got to go out and make it smooth again. And the only way that happens is engaging in conversation. It's all fair and love and war. I want to ask you, when you're thinking about the NFL and all these players that were doing the tryouts, and they were having these off-site tryouts where they were actually going to the universities, Big C, to watch some of these athletes perform. When you think about this, which first-round rookie quarterback matchup are you most excited to see in the 2021 season as it resumes, Big C? Your thoughts? I'm going to bring up a couple of players.
I mean, you got all these high-priced rookies that were drafted in the first round. You got 5 of them. And, you know Kyle Trask is not going to get any time on the field down in Tampa. But when you look at Lawrence, you look at Wilson, you look at Fields, you look at the kid Jones there in New England, and there's one other, Charlton Lance in San Francisco. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to depend which ones get on the field. You know that Lance is most likely going to be backing up Jimmy Garoppolo at the start of the season, but you got Trevor Lawrence and Wilson. I want to see these 2 players, Charlton, because they were the first 2 quarterbacks taken in the draft.
Yeah.
And I want to see them go head up. I want to see the guy that was in the college football playoffs 3 years in a row and the guy that wasn't, Charlton, and see how well they perform on the next level.
Yeah, it will be interesting. San Francisco, Trey Lance versus Chicago, Justin Fields. I would pick Fields just to be better player early on. They'll probably catch each other in about the next year or 2. And then you have the great Zach Wilson out of BYU with the New York Jets now. Again, Trevor Lawrence. Now here, in my opinion, people say they have similar arm types. I think Trevor Lawrence has a much better arm, especially when it comes to trying to run away from pressure and even run 50 yards for a touchdown. He did that against Ohio State in a playoff game a couple of years ago. Which one would you give maybe the favor to? The Jets may have a better team, though, because they've been at it. Last year they started to improve. Jacksonville only won 1 game. Big C, your thoughts?
I think Zach Wilson is just a better quarterback. When you think about Trevor Lawrence, he's just been hyped for 3 years. But Zach Wilson, I mean, the guy's got all the throw angles that you can come with, Charlton. He has a much smoother delivery than Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is just one of those guys that you've heard about for 3 years, and people say, okay, he's automatically has to be good. And then they'll say, well, Wilson just splashed onto the scene. But when I watch Wilson throw the football, Charlton, I mean, there's not a throw he cannot make, whether it's sidearm, whether it's over the top. Matter of fact, he threw it underarm one time and threw a completion for a touchdown, Charlton, in a game that I saw on television. So I think he has all the intangibles to be the best quarterback in the class. And ironically, I think Mac Jones will be the second best quarterback in the class because of his landing spot in New England.
That's interesting. Even when you think about Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence was played in Carolina, Hall in the ACC, all their home games, never lost a game in that conference. Even when they lost a game at Notre Dame, it wasn't him starting. Zach Wilson went into
the kid from California, wasn't it?
No, it was a kid. Well, DJ Uiagalelei, he was a high school kid.
From California. He was on the college team, wasn't he?
No,
from California.
He was the number 1 college recruit.
But he was on the team. He wasn't in high school. He was on the college team.
Yeah. But my point is, California's had the most players, quarterbacks drafted into the NFL, Big C, and he's the number 1 recruit out of California. And they went to Notre Dame, and everybody gets robbed in front of touchdown Jesus. But I'm just saying, Zach Wilson went to Carolina one time, and he couldn't beat Coastal Carolina, and that might be a clue, in my opinion. But also, when you think about it, in my opinion, Trevor Lawrence versus Trey Lance, Big C. Trey Lance, if it were not for the great Carson Wentz having success at that university, I don't know if he would have even gotten noticed, because they keep going back to that program and finding the second number 1 pick that's happened before BYU's had 2 number 1 picks in that same 5-year span. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the last 3 starting quarterbacks at North Dakota State have been drafted by the NFL. They're all 3 in the NFL. So it just wasn't Carson Wentz who was a quarterback after him, who was with the backup down with the Chargers, Charlton, and now Lance. So this program has produced some quarterbacks, the last 3. Not many universities can say their last 3 starters have been drafted by the NFL.
Was he a first-round pick, though? I don't think he was a first-round pick, Big C.
No, he was a 4th-round draft pick.
Yeah, that's
what I mean. He went to 4th. But two of the 3 were first rounds, and the other was a fourth-round pick. You
Yeah.
still can't get that from many universities.
Yeah, that's very well said. Zach Wilson versus Mac Jones. I mean, in my thinking, Zach Wilson is going to do his thing. I just don't think he's as good as people. He's not better than Lawrence. He's not better than Fields. That's just my own observation. He can beat Troy. He can beat Northern Alabama in those programs. But it's one shining moment to beat a ranked team they lost. At the same time, you have Mac Jones. Cam Newton, to me, is going to be such a great player this year. Cam Newton will stay healthy. He has a good core returning for the Patriots this year. He'll probably throw for close to 4,000 yards. If he stays healthy, he's not dealing with COVID. His shoulder's healed up now. He'll probably end up rushing for about another 500. Their defense is going to be good again. So I don't even know if Mac Jones gets on the field, Big C. But if he does, if it's Zach Wilson and Mac Jones, who do you like in that contest? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, I like Mac Jones. Mac Jones, I mean, I just said North Dakota State had their last 3 starting quarterbacks drafted by the NFL.
Yeah.
Alabama is the other university to have their last 3 starting quarterbacks drafted by the NFL, Charlton.
Yep.
When you think about Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, and Mac Jones is a complete quarterback. Every offense in the NFL is not based on an RPO. I think people get sidetracked with that, talking about how well he can run. Half the quarterbacks in the NFL are stationary pocket quarterbacks. And what New England had done for 20 years was dealt with a stationary pocket quarterback. That meant that's what their offensive line was built for. Their receivers were built for that.
Yeah.
Their running game was built for that. When you brought in Cam Newton, he was basically an outlier in the system that New England had. They could not retool everybody to fit Cam Newton's attributes. That's why I see Mac Jones being inserted into that lineup somewhere between Game 5 and Game 7 of this upcoming season, Charlton, and they will click like they did 5 years ago.
Well, when everybody outside it makes a difference, we'll have to bet some moonshine and some red wine on that one, Big C. It's all fair and love and war. We're going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. When we come back, man, the NFL schedule, Big C, there's some games that are worth watching, and there's one for sure worth watching. In the words of the great Arnold Schwarzenegger, we'll be back. All right, we're back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow on so many apps, and I really do appreciate the growth of Big C Sports. I want to say thank you to Xfinity Comcast TV and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. At the same time, Big C, when you think about which revenge game are you most interested in watching in 2021, there's a lot of good games. You have Jalen Ramsey, and they'll be doing his thing versus the Jaguars. You know, the Rams, Jaguars, the second time around. I forgot the name of that group that used to sing that song back in the day, the second time around. But there's about a 3% chance. Is that something that you set your DVR for, Big C? Your thoughts?
You know, I'm not so worried about watching a cornerback, Charlton, in a football game because he's isolated out on an island, and you can take him out of the game by not even going in that direction.
Yeah, try to just go the other way, the way people did when Deion Sanders was doing his thing. Big C, when you think about Watson Hopkins out of Arizona and the Texans, who knows where they're going to be, but there's about a 16% chance in that. Is that something that makes you wet your palate, Big C? Your thoughts?
You know, that's a game that I would be very interested in seeing. Can that offensive line stand up to J.J. Watt? Because they spent a decade going at each other, Charlton, in practice. Now it's not a practice. It's for real, live bullets.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins, I think he would have 2 bones to pick down there with the Texans, Charlton,
Yeah.
because of the way they unceremoniously let him go.
Yeah, 2 bones to pick, Big C, is all fair in love and war. There's a new sheriff in town, and his name is Jared Goff, Big C, in Detroit. And then they play the Rams. A lot of people might be interested in watching that. You're swapping quarterbacks. One went to the Super Bowl, and he got traded for a guy that's never even won a playoff game when they play the Rams against the Detroit Lions and the L.A. Rams. It'd be a great thing to see in the Wild Kingdom, Big C, about 28% viewership. Are you interested in that game, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this would be the second biggest highlight of Jared Goff's career. Super Bowl would be #1 getting there, Charlton. Coming back, beating the Rams after they kicked your butt out of town and rubbing Sean McVay's nose in it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a game that's so interesting to see. you just kind of feel for Detroit. They don't know how to win the big games. The Rams have a better defense. It's all fair in Leavenworth War. But the game that I would really pay to see, even though I like to use in the media pass instead, Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, they've been around, 19 years, almost 2 decades, Big C. Well, Brady decided to go down to Florida. And now you have the New England Patriots. If you think about it, 52% maybe want to watch that game. I think that would be the number one game in television, especially if you have with the New England fans boo Tom Brady. Big C, your thoughts?
It would be the game of the week on whichever network carries that, Dalton. And I'm looking at that being a Sunday night game that everybody gets an opportunity to look at. I think the NFL would want to showcase that with no other game on television, Dalton, because this is going to come down. Did I make you, or were you that great without me? That's what it's going to be. It's just going to be railed up as Belichick versus Brady.
Yeah. At the same time, if you have the great Cam Newton against the great Tom Brady, you have 2 former NFL MVPs. Both have gone to Super Bowls, Big C. Brady's been to 10 of them. Cam Newton with the one with Carolina. I mean, you're probably going to see that's as big a game as you can find. It's all Eastern Seaboard. But it's young versus, well, they're both older. But you still have, Arians doesn't have the same respect that Belichick has. In Belichick, people just think about him with New England, but he was a defensive coordinator with Parcells when they had the New York Giants won 2 Super Bowls. So people talk about going to 10. He's been to 12 Super Bowls when you think about it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Yeah, but he was a flop when he was a head coach with the Cleveland Browns, and Nick Saban was his defensive coordinator there, Charlton. Depending on the time of the season that game is played, Charlton, if it's after Week 7, Cam Newton may not be in the lineup. And if Cam Newton's in the lineup, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense will feast upon him, Charlton, because they will rattle him, and if he can't get rid of the ball on time, he will be toast. But I think if it's after Week 7 of the season, it'll be Mac Jones and him getting rid of the ball on time against that Tampa defense.
I say New England's going to beat him because Belichick's not going to lose to a guy that he trained just like Yoda trained those Jedi Knights, Big C. Can't wait to see that. It's all fair in love and war, Big C. NFL, who will be the best of the young quarterbacks, in your opinion, in the AFC East? We need to think about it. A lot of people love that question because the Patriots took Mac Jones, and it really hit me how young the division suddenly has become at that position. All 4 teams, Big C, they all have first-round draft picks on the rookie contract at quarterback. That'll likely change soon for Buffalo. And here's some birth dates for some of those young kids, and many of them just learned how to drive a car from what I understand. But the Bills quarterback Josh Allen, Big C, he's born 5/21/1996, so he can buy a beer, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he's got the Bills Mafia up there, Charlton. He never has to pay for a drink or chicken wings in Buffalo.
Or chicken wings in Buffalo. And then Tua Tagovailoa, if he can hold out and stay the starter for the Dolphins, he's born on March 2nd, 1998, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, just a young guy, Charlton, entering his 2nd year in the league. Hopefully he's got that hip 100% now, Charlton, and he can flop some fish down there in the South Bay.
Just stay away from the water moccasins. It's all fair and level war. Speaking of fish, he might enjoy the Big C burger. It's a tasty burger, and it does come with exotic meats, Big C. You have the great Mac Jones that you like out of Alabama. He's born September 5th, 1998. He can also have the Big C burger, Big C. Your thoughts?
This guy is a star in the making. Everyone has him underrated as far as how good he's going to do in the NFL. But if anything shows that what he did at Alabama, he's just as good as Joe Burrow in Cincinnati.
Well, we will see. Hopefully he stays healthy more than Joe Burrow did back in Cincinnati, where he threw a lot of passes from the backside, Big C. The Jets quarterback, the great Zach Wilson. Broadway Joe was known as a playboy and never saw a libation he didn't want to drink, Big C. And now you have the great Zach Wilson coming out of BYU. I'm sure he's already done his mission. Born August 3rd, 1999. At the same time, New York is not a great place for people to have a clean image, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he's going to bring that squeaky clean image to the Big Apple.
Really?
And he has that gunslinger mentality for an arm.
Yeah.
And you watch him how he light up the New York skyline there in Giant Stadium.
Yeah, the only squeaky clean images in New York might be those high-rise buildings when they use that squeegee on them, Big C. It's all fair. And 11 Ward, wishing nothing but the best. But when you think about it, Big C, the great Josh Allen out of Fireball, California, was an MVP candidate last year. and not a lot of people thought he would be that great coming out of Fireball High School. He had to go to JC route down near Fresno. I think it's called Kings River College. And then he even went over to Wyoming and played at the highest elevation in college football. And now he's setting the NFL on fire because he had a chance. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, this is what all quarterbacks look for, is having a chance, Charlton. And if he picks up where he left off last year, he'll be right there in that MVP race again.
Yeah, I really like the way he matured. He's also that run-pass option. People think it's just Cam Newton, but I'm telling you, that good boy Allen is a run-pass option. When you think about this, I want to bring you to another thought about NFL football. And it's amazing that it's like chocolate cake. It's the anticipation that tastes as good as a chocolate cake, Big C. Maybe not as good, but I think I like the cake more than the anticipation. But I think you understand what I'm saying, Big C. All fair level war. You have the Colts, Big C. You have the Jets, and you have the Raiders. All kick off their rookie mini camps today, which will include field work for the newest edition, and all other teams will have theirs next week. The football season is getting closer, like that chocolate cake I'm about to chew on tonight, Big C. It, to me, is kind of snuck up on us, Big C. Your thoughts?
No, it didn't sneak up on us, Charlton. We live football down here in the South, so it's an everyday thing.
Yeah.
You know, so when you think about where football is, Charlton, we just had the draft, and now everybody's moving in to minicamp.
Yeah.
Football is there in earnest. All those other pro sports, beware.
Yeah, well, while you guys are focused on football mini camps, on the West Coast, we were busy winning another NBA championship and a World Series. So I understand it's all fair level war. Even Stanford women won the NCAA college basketball championship, beating another Pac-12 team in Arizona. So we have year-round sports in California. And wait till you guys get Georgia. Foolishly, they took the game. They let a dog take the bait, Big C. They scheduled Oregon for the kickoff classic. It's next year. But you're going to see a duck whip a bulldog in the South. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when those feathers start flying, Charlton, and nothing left but a little smoke on the grill, we'll let you guys cool down that meat with the feathers that was left.
Not so fast, my friend. Even LSU, they were foolish enough to schedule Chip Kelly and the UCLA Bruins at the Rose Bowl. That's this year. Should be a great thing seeing college football. The last time an SEC team came out to the Rose Bowl, UCLA also beat up on Texas A&M. But I want to go back to the NFL. There are 7 new head coaches in 2021, Big C. We were just talking about these young players that are going to be quarterbacks, Big C, in the AFC East. And now, would you think about this? We had a COVID-19 season for 2020, so a lot of things happened under the radar, kind of in the fog, Big C, as they cleared the fog in the NFL. There's 7 head coaches I want to ask your opinion about, Big C. Number 1, I'll start with maybe the best dressed coach or best dressed owner in college, not college football, but NFL football, Arthur Blank for the Atlanta Falcons. They have a new guy that they just brought on, the name Arthur Smith, Big C. Give me your feelings on the great Arthur Smith, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, he's in a rebuilding process down in Atlanta, Charlton. He came over from the Tennessee Titans. He hopes to install that type of offense that they ran, but he doesn't have Derrick Henry, so it's going to create some problems down there. He has some great receivers in Atlanta, but what will they do with Julio Jones?
They got to keep him. 95 yards a game, what's to talk about? You got to keep Julio Jones. Detroit, Big C, they have a quarterback that finally can say he has some Super Bowl experience. They sent Stafford out to L.A. because he loves the beach, Big C, and they brought in Jared Goff, who went to Moraine Catholic High School in Northern California, then Cal Berkeley. The great Dan Campbell, he has his hands full in Detroit, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when they hired Dan Campbell, I thought I was witnessing a WWE press conference, because he didn't sound anything like an NFL head coach. Sound like he wanted to jump through the rope and bite off somebody's leg. And so I think he might leave his team a little short on the season this year, Charlton.
Yeah, it sounded like he was making a Dick Butkus speech or a Mike Singletary speech from the Chicago Bears. Big C, is all fair level war. Houston, they have a problem in so many ways. I think a lot of shenanigans are going on around the Houston program, but that's my opinion, and I'll let the dirt come out in the wash. But they bring in David Culley because all the shenanigans, I think it was more created through shenanigans with the quarterback situation. But David Culley, I mean, who does he have to coach now, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it was great to see an African-American get the head coaching job down with the Texas Charlton, but they left him with the cupboard spare. I mean, they stripped down that franchise from all its elite players, the receivers, running backs. Who knows whether the quarterback is going to play Charleston, their top defensive lineman. So this is a team that's, building from the ground up. If they win 5 games, they'll be lucky.
Yeah, if they'll win 5, they will be lucky, Big C, because they won 4 last year. Now, in Jacksonville, I know you like Jacksonville, Big C, because they're probably going to be good in the next 3 years, but they're not going to be good in the next 2. But you do have the great Urban Meyer. You're not going to be able to play golf with them anymore, but you will be able to watch how they put together a team, Big C. You're done.
Well, let me use your friend Rudy Giuliani's line. Trial by combat, Charleston. You have to go out there and fight against grown men every week. Urban can't threaten anybody. He can't take a scholarship away now.
No.
Matter of fact, he'll get punched in the mouth if you say the wrong thing to a professional athlete.
Yeah.
So this is a team, Charleston, they had the number 1 draft pick for a reason. They might win 3.
Yeah, they might win more than the great Rudy Giuliani, Big C, who had his office raided for some shenanigans. It's all fair of the war. And then you bring in the Los Angeles Chargers. I thought they got rid of the man too soon. They just needed a better field goal kicker, but they changed. They sent Anthony on, Big C, Anthony Lynn, but they bring in Brandon Staley, and I'm telling you, they built their offensive lineup. They have last year's rookie quarterback, a rookie of the year, and Justin Herbert out of Oregon, out of the Pac-12, Big C. So the Chargers, they have a good thing going, probably at least right now, number 2 team in the AFC West, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, they got some key players back on defense. They got James and they got Bosa back, Charleston, on defense. If they can stay healthy on the defensive side of the ball, they can make waves. If Austin Eckler doesn't miss a critical part of the season like he did last year, their running game will be solid. And they should challenge for second place in the AFC West.
Yeah, they should. Big C, they were good enough to be second place last year, but they missed like 4 field goals that cost them 4 games. It's all fair and love and war, but that's not how they looked at it, Big C. Philadelphia, Nick Sirianni, Big C, I don't know what that's going to mean. And because we're talking about who they're going to have at quarterback, I think it's going to be, Jalen Hurts, in my opinion. But it's all open for debate, and it's all open for competition, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, their biggest problem is who they're going to have on the offensive line, which was beat up last year, was like holding cheesecloths up in front of a bull saying, don't go over there and see those cows and stuff. But, the Philadelphia Eagles are in a total rebuild. I don't think that they'll be any better in their division than what they were last year, Charleston. This is basically a 500 ball club.
Yeah, you said don't see those cows. I guess you're talking about the Philly cheesesteak. They should have the Big C burger. It's a tasty burger, and it tastes a lot better than that Philly cheesesteak. All fair and love and war. I want to take you to New York City, where they have the Big Apple, and they also have Broadway Joe, who tried to kiss every single woman he got around, and that's even after he retired. Big C, it's all fair and love and war. Now they have a new flavor in town. He's not as street savvy as Broadway Joe, but what can you expect from a guy out of Alabama wanting to kiss pretty girls for a change? Big C, your thoughts on the great Robert Saleh?
Well, Robert Saleh, this is a guy that doesn't have much of a hope yet. He had a tremendous draft, Charleston.
Yep.
They had some solid players, but you have to look at the division that they're in, Charleston, starting at the top with the Buffalo Bills, looking at the Miami Dolphins. Then you have the New England Patriots, who are going to be vastly improved from last year.
Yeah.
The Jets are slated to finish last in their division.
Yeah, they're slated. They're always, that's nothing new, Big C. At least they'll feel comfortable fitting on those shoes that are comfortable. I think Saleh's going to get them rolling, but it might take them 2 years. It's all fair and level war. I want to swing the bat over to Major League Baseball. The great Tony La Russa may want to study the rules that they've changed some, Big C. And a lot of people change things, Big C. But since he last met us about a decade ago, seems a little bit clueless at times about Major League Baseball. New extra runner rule and extra innings ultimately cost the White Sox a game on Wednesday, but they're playing better. But as the Reds beat them 1-0 in the top of the 10th, Chicago had a closer, Liam Hendricks, as the runner on second base after he pitched the bottom of the 9th. And then Yasmani Grandal, Big C, walked, putting runners on first and second before Luis Garcia grounded into a fielder's choice. Thus, Hendricks, Big C, found himself on third base with Garcia on first and one out. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this comes down to paying attention to what you do. I always talk about reading. Reading is fundamental. And here's Tony La Russa. He's reading the calories on that beer can, but he wasn't reading the rules book in baseball that has changed since he was last there, Charleston, and cost his team dearly.
Yeah, but he has a lot of history a lot more history than a lot of people will ever get. So I'm going to give him a pass on that. But Garcia was then caught stealing with Billy Hamilton at the plate, Big C, who eventually struck out to end the inning. The Reds went on to win in the bottom of the 10th one. It's a good game. It went down to the wire. Then the Russo didn't know that he could use Jose Abreu at Big C at second base as a free runner instead of Hendricks. But everybody makes mistakes. It's all fair in love and war. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, those are mistakes when you're the manager you can't afford to make. You're supposed to be the leader of men, Charlton, not the watcher of the game.
Yeah, it's all fair in love and war. Maybe he was just tired. You ever have a nap in the middle of the day? Give the man a break. He probably just had a nap. It's all fair in love and war. When you think about another player who doesn't take naps, the great Shohei Ohtani, Big C, hit his 10th homer of the season for the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. In his second time this season, he's homered the day after pitching, which is the first time that's happened in the modern era. This guy has greatness written all over him. I just hope he can stay healthy, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, no, he doesn't have it written all over him. He is greatness, Charlton. He personifies what a baseball player is. This guy wants to be an everyday player who is also a great pitcher. You think about, he's tied for the major league lead in home runs.
Yeah.
Think about that. And he pitches in a rotation.
Yeah.
He's not a spot pitcher. He's a rotational pitcher. Not only that is he's tied for the league in home runs, but he's also fifth in RBI. So when you talk about greatness, you're talking about Babe Ruth numbers. Babe Ruth was talked about the way that Shohei Ohtani is being talked about today.
Yeah, and he's good. And he also was injured, and it hasn't slowed him down, Big C. Tonight's schedule on Friday, May 7th, 2021, Major League Baseball. A lot of good old boys going to be swinging the bat. You have Pittsburgh at the Chicago Cubs, Boston at the Baltimore Orioles, Big C, Washington at the New York Yankees. You have the great game, hopefully, but it's been delayed, Big C. You had Cincinnati at Cleveland. Arizona Diamondbacks at the New York Mets. Hopefully they don't fire anybody else in New York, Big C. Minnesota Twins at Detroit. The Milwaukee, the Brewers at those Marlins down in Miami. Will they do fish like cheese, Big C? Will fish eat cheese, Big C? Your thoughts?
Yeah, but they will swim in beer.
They will swim in beer, especially with a deep fried batter. It's all fair level war. Philadelphia at Atlanta, Big C, down in the South. You have Seattle. They're at the Texas Rangers, Big C. The Bluebirds that I love, called the Toronto Blue Jays. They're at Houston. And at least Houston's not going to get, they're not going to get booed this game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, those Canadians, Charlton, don't pay much attention to teeth.
It's all fair level war. And Tony La Russa, your friend, and the Chicago White Sox, they're at Kansas City. Will he take a nap in this game, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, he probably has some beer and barbecue this afternoon,
You
Charlton.
got to have beer and barbecue in Kansas City. That's all they have on the menu in Kauffman Field, Big C. Colorado Rockies at St. Louis Cardinals. The Los Angeles Dodgers, defending world champion Los Angeles Dodgers, playing the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. I guess you would call them their second favorite son in Los Angeles for baseball, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, I guess the lead word, Charlton, in their name, lost, which is what they do on a regular basis now, you know, fits them.
Yeah, 8-time National League West champions, last year's World Series champion. They'll be fine. Tampa Bay at the Oakland A's here in the Bay Area. And then San Diego Padres at the San Francisco Giants in the city by the bay, and they'll be sitting on the dock of the bay. Big C, your thoughts?
Could you be looking at the two best teams on the West Coast face-to-face tonight, Charlton?
Big C, there's some great baseball being played in the National League West. It's all fair and level war. I want to take you to the world of the NBA because NBA action is fantastic, Big C. You have the great Paul George led 7 players in double figures with 24 points, and the LA Clippers, they routed the Los Angeles Lakers 118-94, but hardly any of the real Lakers were on the floor, Big C, Thursday night, moving into the number 3 spot in the Western Conference. And nobody's going to have any type of pity for the defending NBA champion Los Angeles Lakers, especially the great Kawhi Leonard, dropped 15 points, 8 rebounds, had 6 assists. And then Ivica Zubac, Big C, added 14 points and 8 rebounds for the Clippers, who've already clinched a playoff berth in LA, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I beg your pardon when you say hardly any of the Lakers on the floor. I looked over there and Anthony Davis was laying on the floor. It's like somebody help me out of this thing because I don't feel like getting my butt kicked on TV tonight, so I'm going to go down with another injury.
Yeah, I think he twisted his ankle and it actually caused some back pain. You've had that happen to you before. It's all fair level war. Wasn't it the great Peyton Manning that broke his neck and they put a cast on his foot? I mean, sometimes the doctors know what they're doing, Big C. Davis was limited to 4 points on 2 of 9 shooting in 9 minutes, Big C. It looks as if something went bad. Anthony Davis said to play in this format, and they needed games to get back to accustomed to each other. But at the same time, you got to stay healthy or the season's not going to last too long. But at the same time, in my opinion, the NBA MVP, it's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's Steph Curry shooting threes, Big C. The great Steph Curry dropped 34 points. He had 7 assists, and the Golden State Warriors raced past the Oklahoma City Thunder, Big C. It was by the score of 118-97 on Thursday night. The Warriors moved into 8th place in the Western Conference. It's a half game ahead of Memphis. They're doing it without the Splash Brother. And for anyone that wants to question whether Steph Curry's the MVP, the young kids of the AAU, they tell you something. They all want to set their DVRs to see when Steph Curry's playing. He's the best free throw shooter in the NBA along with Dollar Dame. He's the best three-point shooter in the history of the NBA, Big C. And right now, he's won 1 win, and he's carrying Golden State back to the promised land, at least the playoffs, Big C. Your thoughts?
And those young kids that you say that are in the AAU, let me know how many MVP votes that they have.
Their eyes. They vote with their eyes, and I'm telling you, NBA is about marketing.
Until they get a ballot, I mean, we see eyes all over America. Every time the NBA comes on, there's eyes on the screen. But it comes down to who has the ballots, and those ballots are sent in, Charlton, and they're counted, just like in the presidential election when Donald Trump got 74 million votes. But hell, he lost by 7 million. That's all that matters.
Yeah, well, just like Giuliani said, with your friend Rudy Giuliani, he said, count all the votes, Big C, and Steph Curry just wants you to see with your eyes who the best player in the NBA is. But sometimes people do give out sympathy trophies. They'll even give teams that lose a tournament, they all give those kids some trophies, and maybe that's what the joke is looking for, Big C.
That's what the AAU kids are used to. They get the participation trophy.
It's all fair and lovable. I guess that's what your friend is looking for, but he's not going to give you those chicken nuggets. At the same time, a player who at times plays like he's an MVP is Russell Westbrook, in my opinion. But I'm going to start with the great Bradley Beal, dropped 14 of his 28 points in the fourth quarter in overtime in Thursday night, Big C. The great Russell Westbrook, loser to high school, Southern California, went to UCLA, Big C. His 34th triple-double of the season in the Washington Wizards 131-129 win over Toronto. That all but eliminated the Raptors from the NBA playoffs in the play-in tournament. Pascal Siakam, he matched the career high. That good boy was flying. He dropped 44 points, Big C, but it was not enough for the Raptors, who lost for the 5th time in 6 games and fell 4 games behind the Wizards in the 10th spot in the Eastern Conference with 5 games left to play. Siakam missed a long three-pointer at the end in overtime. But if anyone wants to see great basketball, the great Russell Westbrook, his 34th triple-double of the season. Some guys don't get that in 3 years, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about what Russell Westbrook, he has the best betting line in Las Vegas, Charlton. People are betting on him to get a triple-double, and they know if he gets a triple-double, there's a 78% chance that the Wizards are going to win a basketball game, Charlton. Yep. So he's been money on top of money all year long in Vegas.
Yeah, he's been doing his thing. I just love the fact that he plays so hard. You can't always control your outcome, but you can control how hard you play. And I wish Anthony Davis would just watch the great Russell Westbrook. I mean, he doesn't have injury-free games. He plays with sore feet, sore knees. He's always iced up, but you couldn't tell because when he's on the court, he's like a lion, Big C. The great Luka Doncic dropped 24 points. The great Tim Hardaway Jr. added 23. The Dallas Mavericks beat the Brooklyn Nets 113-109 Thursday night to finish the season sweep. They were sweeping them, Big C. The great Kyrie Irving had a season high, 45 points, and he did it in 1 game for the Nets, but it wasn't enough, Big C. They lost a season 4th straight game and dropped 2 games behind the Eastern Conference leading the great Philadelphia 76ers. My team and my choice to end up in the Eastern Conference Finals and to play the champion from the West. I'm not writing out the Lakers yet, Big C. Dorian Finney-Smith scored 17 points as the Mavericks reached 10 games over 500 for the first time this season. And think about it, Big C. They held on to that 5th seed in the Western Conference, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Nets struggle, Charlton, when you have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant on the floor together, Charlton. This team has been abysmal. I believe with those two on the floor together this year, they're like 7-19 with those two players playing together. So they're not a solid team with those two out there. And so I don't hold much hope for those two together unless you have James Harden out there riding the ship. But when you think about Dallas sweeping the Nets in this series, Charlton, that doesn't bode well in the playoffs.
Yeah, it doesn't bode well in the playoffs. Maybe they can have the Budweiser Zero, but that has 0% alcohol. But they can have the Big C Burger. It's a tasty burger, and it comes with
Maybe you need to get one of those Budweiser Zeros to Tony Caruso.
Hey, Big C, when you get too much of the stuff that does have the alcohol, sometimes your eyes get blurry, and the eyes have been known to deceive you. Ask the great Broadway Joe. It's all fair in Love and War. Big C, today in Black History Today, there's a book called Powernomics. Powernomics. People should get it. Author Dr. Clyde Anderson, Big C, who worked close to President Bill Clinton, asking President Joe Biden's administration for infrastructure to fund a black-owned firm high-speed train that's going to run through 5 southern states from Georgia all the way over to Texas, Big C, along the I-20. It's called the I-20X. It's going to rival the high-speed trains in Europe and Asia. Would you believe only about 40 miles of high-speed rail exists in the United States that have trains that can go at least 150 miles per hour? This is a black-owned firm, and I hope that the President Biden administration, who got elected by primarily African Americans, turned out to vote for him. I hope that he can turn on that switch called funding, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, there has to be a lot of Army Corps of Engineers studies, Charlton, on where you would put the train of that nature down through the South. There's a lot of wetlands that you have to go through, Charlton. So, I mean, stabilization of land would be the primary task that you'd have to deal with.
Yeah, they've already looked into that project, Big C. It was founded by Powernomics principal Dr. Clyde Anderson. And when you think about it, Big C, it's the second great railroad revolution. Hopefully, it will get the funding that it's calling for. Before we close out, I want to just honor women. I know there's a great Mother's Day weekend coming up on Sunday. Everyone with their mothers, whether they're here or whether they're gone, Big C, they're never gone. They're always here. But I want to just say happy Mother's Day to all the beautiful women in the universe, Big C. Olympics women's basketball player from Australia. Her name is Liz Cambridge. Would you believe she threatens to boycott the Olympics over photos that she considers were whitewashed? She's white. And it primarily eliminated women of color. Now, all life came from the African continent. Every single person. Black women have the only gene that can reproduce every hue of color on the planet. That's Dr. Mendel and Dr. Leakey. At the same time, this conscientious woman is claiming that if they don't fix that, then she's willing to pull out of the Olympics. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, there's going to be a lot of people pull out of the Olympics, Charlton, even if the Olympics goes off. It may not go off due to COVID-19. I know it's less than 100 days away, and Japan has talked about canceling it once again, Charlton. But Liz Cambridge, I mean, she's a stark woman. She stands 6'8". She's a gorgeous woman, Charlton. Met her a couple times. She's absolutely brilliant. She plays in the WNBA. She's been an all-star. She's out there in Las Vegas. And, you know, this is what women have done in the NBA all year, Charlton. They've taken a stand against the status quo, saying that things need to be changed.
And I'm telling you, if you want something, you got to ask for it. You have not because you ask not. And I'm proud of women standing up for what's right. You got to ask for whatever you want, Big C. Happy Mother's Day to everybody in the universe, Big C. Back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, rumble, young man, rumble. With all you've got to use, how can you lose? Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I guess I'll have to get in touch with Michael Westbrook and have him to send that Anthony Davis's courage pills and drip a little of his sweat into a bottle so he can rub it on his knees and keep Anthony Davis out on the court playing basketball. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, first responders. Maybe they got another Band-Aid to put on Anthony Davis.
I am stuck on Band-Aids because Band-Aids stuck on me. You can be stuck on Band-Aids too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as my mama always says, there's never ever an excuse for racism. or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports Show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.